This might be the most important paragraph of the article. Listen closely. As the value of currency declines, the incentives to work and to save your earnings in that currency also decline. Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking the channel out today. My name is Agabus and this is your financial education channel. Today we're going to talk a bit about the most historic inflation moments of people in the Weimer Republic of Germany carrying wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. Well, Bitcoin Magazine did a special on it this year to mark 100 years of that historic inflation. Let's take a look and dive deep into some banking history. In the early 1920s, the value of the paper mark, which is the native currency of the Weimer Republic of Germany, lost almost all of its purchasing power, causing tremendous instability within Weimar for many years as society tried to wrestle with the fact that tomorrow's money was worth less than it was today. Day after day, the currency continued to become worth less and less and less, ultimately becoming a worthless piece of paper. The value of the currency fell quickly, and a loaf of bread in Berlin that cost around 200 paper marks in January 1923, 100 years ago, had risen to 200, look at all those zeros, 200 billion paper marks by November 1923. The exponential decrease in the paper mark's purchasing power can be seen by the value of one gold mark in paper marks. Some of the events which led to Weimer's hyperinflation bear a striking similarity to events happening today. The most striking similarity is the rate of growth or expansion in the money printing, also known as cash in circulation, or again the supply of money. Monetary base in Weimar, Germany from 1914 to 1923 and the M2 money supply in the United States form a ski slope, a very technical term for exponential expansion of the money supply. Printing money decreases its effectiveness over time, law of diminishing returns. And printing money, this is a great analogy, printing money, like hard drugs, I'm told, secondary sources, is most effective in the beginning. And after this, all future money printing, hard drugs high, using the analogy, requires you to print more and more and more money to achieve the same effect as the initial print. You can see in these two graphs here the monetary base back in Weimer Republic, Germany, and the most recent money supply here in the US. Printing money in the short term can stimulate demand, which can be an economic benefit, but it pulls future demand into the present. Overprinting, on the other hand, is very bad for an economy as it devalues the currency and forces everything, such as goods and services, to be repriced to the ever-increasing new money supply. As we've seen real estate as an example, the price of real estate has exploded exponentially in the last couple of years because of this increase in the supply of the money. In Weimar, Germany in the 1920s, overprinting led to asset bubbles and the rapid increase in the value of many assets. The author quotes Frau Eisenmeyer's quote from 1919, very interesting. "The value of my industrial investments is rising to an extent which seems to be incomprehensible and almost makes me uneasy. Today we also see asset classes increasing in value at alarming rates. From the GameStop short squeeze back in January of 2021 to the rapid rise of the value in non-fungible tokens, also known as NFTs, the rate of growth of some of these investments seems rapid, excessive, and is speculative in nature. And an NFT that was worth $1,000 one month is worth $500,000 the next month." For the record, this isn't a critique of NFTs or if they have value. It's the rate of growth in some NFTs that are alarming. Its speculative rise is telling and reminds the author of the quote from the book When Money Dies around hyperinflation in the 1920s. Adam Ferguson, in his book When Money Dies, says, "As old virtues of thrift, honesty, and hard work lost their appeal, everybody was out to get rich quick, especially as speculation in currency or shares could palpably yield far greater rewards than your labor." This might be the most important paragraph of the article. Listen closely. As the value of currency declines, the incentives to work and to save your earnings in that currency also decline. Most residents subconsciously don't see a way to grow their wealth through working hard and saving more. Many resort to speculation to keep up with higher inflation burdens that push up their cost of living. In the book, The Bitcoin Standard, the author describes a longer-term perspective on life. If the value of your money increases or stays the same, people are able to plan and think more long-term. However, when prices increase because the value of your dollar is decreasing exponentially, it forces people to think and plan more short-term. Worse than the printing and debt monetization, governments today, like Weimer Germany did before, don't seem to acknowledge that the printing is a bad thing, or that printing money out of thin air even causes inflation beyond the word transitory. The conversation between U.S. President Joe Biden and Don Lemon of CNN on July 21st of 2021 is telling. Don Lemon says, "You seem pretty confident that inflation is temporary, but you're pumping all of this money into the economy. Couldn't that add to inflation?" Joe Biden's response, "No, look, here's the deal. Moody's today went out. Wall Street firm, not some liberal think tank, said if we pass the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will in fact reduce inflation. Reduce inflation, reduce inflation. Because we are going to be providing good opportunities and jobs for people who in fact are going to be reinvesting that money back in all the things we're talking about. Driving down prices, not raising prices." The author states the lack of connection between the money printers and inflation is eerily similar to the 1920s Germany. Regarding inflation and using the CPI index, the author says for people today, most people know that the cost of living is going up, but it's hard to measure outside of pricing goods and services in Bitcoin for the last 10 years. When food, energy, and housing, soon to be considered a commodity, are excluded from the Consumer Price Index calculations. One could argue that the CPI, excluding essential costs of living, such as food, energy, and housing, makes the CPI an ineffective gauge of true cost of living increases on the average Joe. 100% truth there. The author states, in what world is year-over-year inflation calculated at 4 to 6%, as measured by the CPI, when food and housing prices are up more than 20%. Last time I checked, shelter and food are pretty good cost of living measures. The article concludes that during high inflation environments, the value of a currency is worth less and less each day, ultimately becoming worthless. The majority of the population loses a large percentage of their wealth in these high inflation environments. Some would argue that inflation is an invisible tax. Inflation requires these people to restart again and again at zero. The stakes are high to learn what has happened in the past so we don't repeat the same mistakes in the present. I feel like I've heard that over and over again. The importance of understanding history is so we don't do the same dumb stuff over and over again. That's what I've got for you today. I appreciate the time and listening all the way to the end. Thank you so much for your likes, comments, and shares. As always, make sure you stay inquisitive, make sure you stay informed, and make sure you stay